This is the OCR GCSE 91 Maths Paper 5 from the higher tier, and this paper is from the November 2021 series. Question number 1. We have to work out 3 4/7 multiplied by 7/10. We have to give our answer as a mixed number in its simplest form. So we have 3 4/7 being multiplied by 7/10. Now, if we deal with this 3 4/7, converting it into a top-heavy fraction, well, we have the 3 times by the 7, we add on to this the 4, and then we divide this by 7, and we multiply this fraction by 7/10. So 3 times by 7 is 21, add on 4, that's 25, and then we divide that by 7, so we have 25/7 being multiplied by the 7/10. Now you can see the 7 on the numerator and the 7 on the denominator simplify to 1, leaving us with 25/10. And 25/10 can be simplified by dividing the numerator and the denominator by 5, leaving us with 5/2. And 5/2 as a mixed number, well, 2 goes into 5 2 whole times, and what's left over is 1, so we have 2.5. Question number 2. For part A, ASME is given this question. Write 40 as the product of prime factors, give your answer in index form. ASME's answer is 2 times 2 times 2 times 5. Is ASME correct? Explain your answer. Well, 2 times by 2 times by 2, that's 8. Multiplying that by 5, we get 40. So whilst this value of 2 times by 2 times by 2 times by 5 is 40, the reason ASME is incorrect is because we are required to give our answer in index form. So is ASME correct? No, that's because he has not written the answer in index form. For part B of the question, we have to find the value of x. We have 1/16 equals 2 to the x. Well, 1/16 we can write as 1/2 to the 4, and that's equal to 2 to the x. And if we rewrite the 1/2 to the 4 in index notation, that's the same as 2 to the minus 4. So we have 2 to the minus 4 equaling 2 to the x. And if we compare the indices, you can see x is equal to minus 4. So we have x equals minus 4. Question number 3. A car mechanic has a tin containing 5 litres of engine oil. Each week they use 450 millilitres of this oil for their vehicles. The mechanic says, after 9 weeks I will have used over 80% of the oil in this tin. Are they correct? Show how you decide. Well, what we can do is find out how much oil has been used. For the amount of oil used, we have 450 millilitres multiplied by 9, and if we work out what this is, we end up with 4050 millilitres of oil used. Now, what we need to do is find out what 4050 is as a fraction of 5000 millilitres. And so, what we need to do is the calculation 4050 divided by 5000 So if we work out what this is, well, let's see how far we can simplify this fraction. Well, dividing both the numerator and the denominator by 10, we would have 405 divided by 500. And if we attempt to simplify this even further, well, we can divide both the numerator and the denominator by 5. So 405 divided by 5 is 81. 500 divided by 5 is 100. So what we end up with is 81 over 100, which as a percentage is 81%. So we have 81%, which is clearly more than the 80%, and therefore what we can conclude, the mechanic is correct. Question number 4. The table shows the marks obtained by 10 students in spelling tests in January and February. We've got the marks in January, we've got the marks in February. The marks for the first 6 students are plotted on the scatter diagram. That's what we see here. So we've got the mark in January and the mark in February. For part A, we have to plot the marks for the remaining 4 students. So, for this student, we've got 70 in January, 86 in February. So 70 and then 86, that will be over here. Then we've got 4460. So 4460, that goes over here. Then we've got 3748. So 37 and 48, that would go over here. And then we've got 3850. So we've got 3850 that would go over here. We have plotted the remaining points. For part B of the question, we have to describe the type of correlation shown in the completed scatter diagram. Well, as the marks in January increases, in general, the marks in February increase, and therefore we have a positive correlation. For the first part of part C, on the scatter diagram, you have to circle the student that made the greatest improvement in their marks from January to February. Well, January to February, we want the greatest improvement, so we want the greatest difference between January and February. Well, what looks like the greatest difference will be this score of 30 in January to a score of 66 in February. So we need to circle 30 and then 66. We need to circle this point over here. And then we have to work out the percentage change in the students' marks from January to February. Well, in February they got 66. In January they got 30. So to work out the percentage change, we would have 66 subtract 30 divided by 30, and then we multiply this result by 100. So if we work out what this will equal, well, the difference between 66 and 30, that will equal 36. So we have 36 over 30 being multiplied by 100. Well, can we simplify 36 divided by 30? Well, that will equal, as a simplified fraction, 6/5. So we have 6/5 multiplied by 100. We need to simplify this, and so if we were to simplify this, well, 100 divided by 5 is 20, multiplying that by 6, we end up with a simplified 120. So we have 120%. For part D, another student, Kai, scored 79 marks in the test in January but was absent for the test in February. Kai says, I could have used a line of best fit on the scatter diagram to estimate the marks I may have achieved in the test in February. Is Kai's method reliable? Give a reason for your answer. Well, what he is saying is he got 70 in January, and he's saying that he will use a line of best fit. Now the problem is, so far, with this is the line of best fit should not go beyond the data provided. So his method is not reliable, and that's because the line of best fit should not extend beyond the data provided. Question number 5. We have to work out the volume of this prism. Well, what we need to do is work out the area of the cross section. Now, here we've got a diagram of the cross section with the lengths provided. We've got the 1 centimeters, the 6 centimeters, the 3 centimeters, and the 1 centimeters. Now, for us to find out the area of this cross section, we can complete this rectangle, find out the area of the entire rectangle, and subtract the area of the smaller rectangle. So the area of the cross section, we've got 6 multiplied by 3, and then we subtract from this the 2 times by the 5. 18 subtract 10 is equal to 8. So we have the area of the cross section equaling 8 centimeters squared. So now for us to find out the volume, we need to multiply the cross-sectional area by the depth of 4 centimeters. So to find out the volume, we have the cross-sectional area, 8. We then multiply this by 4. So we have altogether the area 8 times by the depth 4 equaling 32 centimeters cubed. So the volume is 32 centimeters cubed. Question number 6. Here are sketches of 5 graphs. We've got A, B, C, D, and E. We have to write the letter of the graph that represents the following relationships. Y is directly proportional to X. Well, we want a straight line which passes through the origin. That would correspond to graph C. for part B, y is inversely proportional to x, well, that will represent graph D. Question number 7 for part A, we have to solve the inequality. 4 multiplied by x subtract 3 is less than x. Well, if we expand the brackets, we would have 4x subtract 12 being less than x. If we subtract x from both sides, then we would have 3x subtract 12 is less than 0. If we now add 12 to both sides, then 3x is less than 12, and if we divide both sides by 3, then we would have x is less than 4. X is less than 4. We now have to represent our solution on a number line. Well, here is the solution. We have x being less than 4, so the arrow points towards the left. We do not fill in this circle. Question number 8. We have to complete the table for y equals 6 divided by x. Well, when x is equal to negative 2, we have 6 divided by negative 2, which is equal to negative 3. We now have to draw the graph of y equals 6 divided by x for x being in between minus 6 and 6, where x does not equal 0. So if we were to draw this graph, the first thing we have to do is plot these points. So we have negative 6, negative 1. Then we have negative 3, negative 2. Then we have negative 2, negative 3. Then we have negative 1, negative 6. We then have 1, 6, 2, 3, 3, 2, and then 6, 1. We now join these up with a smooth curve. So here is the graph of y equals 6 over x. We've got asymptotes at y equals 0 and x equals 0. Question number 9. A worker received a 10% pay increase in 2017 and a further 10% pay increase in 2018. The worker says, over these 2 years, my pay increased by 10% plus another 10%, which is 20%. The worker is incorrect. We have to work out the correct percentage increase you must show you're working. Well, if we let x equal the original salary, then we have x being multiplied by 1.1. Now this 1.1 would correspond to the 10% pay increase in 2017, and then we multiply this by 1.1 again, which corresponds to the 10% pay increase in 2018. So if we work out what this is equivalent to, we have 1.21 x. And so, if we consider this 1.21 as our decimal multiplier, what we can therefore conclude, the percentage increase is 21%. Question number 10. Force is measured in newtons. A force of 198.5 newtons is applied to a rectangular surface of length 4.9 centimeters and width 4.1 centimeters. We have to work out an estimate of the pressure in Newton per centimeter squared applied to this rectangular surface. The formula for pressure is pressure equals force divided by area. So here is our rectangle. Here are its dimensions. We can approximate the area of this rectangle as follows. We can round down the 4 centimeters to 4 centimeters. We can round up the 4.9 centimeters to 5 centimeters. So the area is 4 times by 5, which is 20. The area of the rectangle is approximately equal to 20 centimeters squared. We are given the force, that's 198.5 newtons. That's approximately 200 newtons. And if we use the formula for pressure, that's force divided by area, the pressure is approximately equal to 200 divided by 20, which is 10. So the pressure is approximately equal to 10 newtons per centimeter squared. Question number 11. The diagram shows a quadrilateral ABCD. AD is 10 centimeters. BAD is 30 degrees. ABD and BDC are 90 degrees. The ratio of the length BD to DC is 1 to 2.4. We have to work out the length of BC. You must show your working. Now before we do anything else, what we can do is find out the length of BD, and we can do that using trigonometry. We are given the hypotenuse, we are finding the opposite, we've been given an angle. What connects those is sine. So we have the sine of 30 degrees equals opposite, which is BD, divided by the hypotenuse, which is 10. So if we have BD equaling 10 times by sine 30, then we can conclude over here that BD is equal to 10 multiplied by 0.5, which is equal to 5. So BD is equal to 5 centimeters. We can now use this information to work out what DC is. So DC, that will equal, using the ratio we've been given, 5 multiplied by 2.4. So if we work out 5 times by 2.4, we get 12, and therefore DC is 12 centimeters. So if I add this to the diagram, we have 12 centimeters. We can now find out what BC is. So if we work out what BC is, we can use Pythagoras. So we have BC squared equals 5 squared plus 12 squared, which is equal to 169. which means if I take the square root of 169, we can conclude BC is equal to 13. So we have 13 centimeters for the length of BC. Question number 12. The box plot shows the distribution of the lengths in centimeters of 64 grown mice owned by a pet shop. For part A, we have to find the range. Well, the range is the biggest value, take away the smallest value. The biggest value is equal to 7.64. The smallest value is equal to 7.0. So if I work out the difference between these, I get 0.64, which means my range is 0.64. For part B, we have to work out the number of these mice that have a length of at least 7.2 centimeters. Well, at least 7.2 centimeters. Well, here is 7.2 centimeters, and we're looking for everywhere here and beyond. Now, do you notice that we are looking at the lower quartile and beyond, which means we have 75% of the data which means if I take 75% of 60, I get 45. So we have 45. For part C, Sam owns 5 full-grown mice. Sam picks the third longest mouse and measures its length. Sam then looks at the box plot. Sam says, this mouse is 7.35 centimeters long, therefore the mice I own are longer than the full-grown mice owned by the pet shop. We have to give a mathematical reason to support Sam's conclusion. Well, Sam's median is longer than the box plot's median. Now, the reason we are talking about Sam's median, he's got 5 mice and he's taking the third longest mouse, and if I've got 5 pieces of data, the third is the middle of those data. And if I take a look at the box plot's median, which is 7.2 something, this 7.35 is larger than this value over here. Now, we have to give it a mathematical reason why Sam's conclusion may be unreliable. Well, he owns 5 full-grown mice. That's a small sample size, so the sample size is too small. Question number 13 for part A, we have to write 3/11ths as a recurring decimal. Well, 1/11th is the same as 0.09090909, etc. So therefore 3/11ths, that's equal to 3 multiplied by 1/11th. So we've got 3 multiplied by 0.09090909, etc. leaving us with 0.27272727, etc. In other words, we've got 0.27 recurring. So we have 0.27 recurring. For part B, we have to write 0.48 recurring as a fraction in its simplest form. Well, the first thing we will do is we will let x equal 0.488888, etc. Because we've got one digit repeating, we can multiply this by 10. So we have 10x equals, now if I multiply this by 10, we have 4.888888, etc. And so now if we subtract these equations, we would have 9x equaling, well, subtracting, you can see these 8's cancel out. We've got 4.8 subtract 0.4, which is 4.4, which means if I divide through by 9, then we would have x equaling 4.4 divided by 9, and if we attempt to simplify this even further, well, we can rewrite this result as 44/90, which would simplify to 22/45. So we have 22/45. Question number 14. Two solid ornaments are mathematically similar. The larger ornament is twice as tall as the smaller ornament. The smaller ornament has a volume of 50 centimeters cubed. We have to work out the volume of the larger ornament. Well, first of all, we can see that our length scale factor, that will equal 2. And the reason for that is because of the statement mentioned here, that the larger ornament is twice as tall as the smaller ornament. And therefore the volume scale factor is equal to the length scale factor 2, then cubed. So we've got 2 cubed, which is 8. The volume scale factor is equal to 8. And therefore, if the smaller ornament has a volume of 50, then the volume of the larger one will equal this 50 multiplied by 8, which is equal to 400. So we have 400 centimeters cubed. Question number 15, we have to write root 20 plus root 45 in the form k root 5. Well, we've got the calculation here so far, and the root 20 we can rewrite as 4 times 5 square rooted, and the root 45 we can rewrite as square root of 9 times by 5. So the square root of 4 times by 5 is the same as 2 root 5. The square root of 9 times by 5 is the same as 3 root 5, and adding these together we get 5 root 5. So we've written the calculation in this form here. Question number 16. In a group of 60 students, 40 own a smartphone and 27 own a tablet and 8 own neither. A student is chosen at random from those that own a tablet. We have to find the probability that they also own a smartphone. You must show your working. Well, here is a Venn diagram which we can sort this information. We've got phone, tablet, and the intersection of both is what we need to find. So what we need to find is the probability that they also own a smartphone. Now what we know so far is we've got 40 people who own a smartphone. So we have 40 people who own a smartphone. 27 of those own a tablet. And then we've got 8 who own neither. And if I let this intersection equal x, which is what we're finding, then we've got those who own a phone equaling 40 subtract x, those who own a tablet equaling 27 subtract x, and the total is equal to 60. We've got 60 students altogether. So we've got 40 subtract x plus the x plus 27 subtract x, and then we add on to this the 8, and in total we get 60. So what we have then, if I add together 40, 27 and 8, we get 75. So I've got 75 subtract x equals 60, which means x is equal to 15. So then when we come to find the probability that they also own a smartphone, what we have out of those selected who own a tablet, well, we've got 27 of those, and of those 15 of them own a smartphone too. So the required probability is 15 over 27. So we have 15 over 27. Question number 17, we have to simplify fully. 2x squared subtract 50 divided by x squared plus 7x plus 10. So what this calculation is equivalent to is 2 multiplied by x squared subtract 25, and on the denominator we can factorize the x squared plus 7x plus 10 as x plus 5 multiplied by x plus 2. Now if we take a look at the numerator, then notice we've got a difference of 2 squareds. X squared plus 25 is a difference of 2 squares. So we have 2 multiplied by x plus 5 multiplied by x minus 5. On the bottom we've got x plus 5 multiplied by x plus 2. And noticing that the x plus 5's simplify to 1, we end up with 2 multiplied by x minus 5 over x plus 2. Because the x plus 5's simplify to 1. Question number 18. A, B, C and D are points on the circumference of a circle. EF is the tangent to the circle at D. The angle BDF is 70 degrees. The ratio angle BCD to the angle CBD is 5 to 2. We have to work out the size of the angle CBD, showing all of our working. So the first thing we can spot is if this angle 70, that means that the angle BAD, which is this angle here, is also equal to 70 degrees. So the angle BAD is also equal to 70 degrees, and that's because of the alternate segment theorem, from which we can find out what this angle BCD is. The angle BCD will equal, now here we need to be careful, we've got the opposite angles in a cyclic quadrilateral adding up to 180, so here we would have 180 degrees, subtract the 70 degrees, which is equal to 110 degrees. So this angle here is 110 degrees. And that's because opposite angles in a cyclic quadrilateral sum to 180 degrees. So now what we can do is find out the angle CBD. So if we have BCD to CBD equaling 5 to 2, we know for BCD we have 110. So what do I multiply 5 by to get 110? Well, that will be 22, which means I also need to multiply the 2 by 22, leaving me with 44 degrees. The angle CBD, this angle here, is therefore equal to 44 degrees. So we have 44 degrees. Question number 19. The point 5, 7 root 2 lies on the circumference of a circle at center 0, 0. We have to find an equation of the circle. Well, here is a diagram to help visualize what's going on. We've got a circle with this point lying on the circumference of the circle. We need to find out the radius. So, if we were to find the radius, what we can do is, to find the radius, use Pythagoras. So, constructing a right-angled triangle, we go 5 across and we go 7 root 2 up, and therefore, using Pythagoras, we have 5 squared plus, then in brackets we've got 7 root 2 squared equals r squared. So we have 25 plus, now here we have 7 root 2 all squared, which is 98. So we have 25 plus 98 equals r squared, which means r squared is equal to 123. We don't need to square root this. We can leave it as it is, concluding that x squared plus y squared equals 123 is the equation of the circle. Question number 20. X squared subtract 2y is equal to 5 and 4y plus z is equal to 7. We have to write z in terms of x in its simplest form. Well, we've got x squared subtract 2y equals 5. We'll call this equation 1. And then we've got 4y plus z equaling 7. Which we'll call equation 2. Now from equation 1, we can rearrange for 2y. 2y is equal to, well, if I add 2y to both sides and then subtract 5, what we have is 2y equaling x squared subtract 5. And if I double this, then 4y, that will equal, well, what we'll do here is we'll multiply through by 2. So we have 2 multiplied by x squared subtract 5. So we have 4y equaling 2x squared subtract 10. So if I call this equation 3, what we can do is substitute in equation 3 into equation 1, rather into equation 2. So I've got 4y, which I've just found here. So this result I can replace with 4y. So I've got 2x squared subtract 10 plus z equals 7. So if I rearrange for z, we can therefore conclude z is equal to 17 subtract 2x squared. Question number 21. AOB is a sector of a circle with centre O and radius 10. The area of the sector is 40 pi centimetres squared. We have to work out the perimeter of the sector in the form a plus b pi, where a and b are integers, and we must show our working. Well, the first thing we need is our angle. We will call our required angle theta. So, how would we normally work out the area of a sector? Well, the way we would normally work out the area of a sector is we take our angle theta and we divide it by 360 because we've got a fraction of an entire circle. And then I multiply this by pi, then I multiply this by the radius squared. Now the radius is 10, so I multiply by 10 squared, and the result of this is equal to 40 pi. So let's see what we have. We have 100 over 360, which is 5 over 18. So we have 5 pi times by theta, over 18 equals 40 pi. Now, happily for us, these pi's cancel off. So if I do 40 divided by 5, which is 8, and then times that by 18, I get 144, which means that theta is 144 degrees. I've got 144 degrees for theta, and therefore what I can do now is find out the perimeter of the sector. So what we can now do is find out the curved length. We can find out the arc length. That's equal to, well, we have a fraction of a full circle. So I've got 144 over 360 multiplied by, well, I have to multiply by 2 pi r. So I've got 20 divided by 360, which is 1 over 18. And then I've got 144 times by this, which is 8. So therefore the arc length is equal to 8 pi. The arc length, which is this length here, is equal to 8 pi. I've also got the 10 centimeters here, and therefore for the perimeter, we'll call the perimeter P. I've got 10 plus 10 plus 8 pi, which is equal to 20 plus 8 pi. So what we end up with is 20 plus 8 pi centimeters for our perimeter. Question number 22. N is a positive integer, and we have to prove that 2n plus 1 multiplied by n subtract 3 multiplied by n plus 2 plus 3n multiplied by n plus 7 is always even. So we begin with this expression here, and if I keep this 2n plus 1 as it is, then I've got n subtract 3 multiplied by n plus 2. So if I multiply this, I've got n times by n, which is n squared. Then I've got n times by 2, which is 2n. Negative 3 multiplied by n, which is negative 3n. Negative 3 times by 2, which is negative 6. Then I've got 3n times by n, which is 3n squared. 3n times by 7, which is 21n. So if I simplify this even further, I have 2n plus 1 multiplied by, now here I've got n squared, then I've got 2n minus 3n, which is minus n, then I've got the minus 6, and then I add on to this 3n squared plus 21n. 2n times by n squared is 2n cubed. 2n times by minus n is minus 2n squared. 2n times minus 6 is minus 12n. 1 times n squared is n squared. 1 times by minus n is minus n. 1 times minus 6 is minus 6. Then I add on to this 3n squared plus 21n. So now let's see what we can do to simplify all this. We have 2n cubed, and then I've got minus 2n squared plus n squared plus 3n squared. So that's 2n squared. Then I've got minus 12n plus 21n. Subtract n, so that is 8n. And then I've got the minus 6 with it. We want to show that this result is even. So now if I factorize out a2, I would have n cubed plus n squared plus 4n subtract 3. So this is my final answer. And so what we can say over here then is we have something which is 2 times by an integer, and therefore this expression is even for all positive integers of n.